Good evening, everyone. Apologies for the late start, but some important items prior to this for some committee meetings, so thank you very much for attending this evening. I'd like to call this meeting of Sylvania City Council in order for March 3rd, 2025. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Hanson?
Here.
Mr. Hanum?
Here.
Mr. McCann?
Here.
Mr. Murphy?
Here.
Mr. Richardson?
Here.
Ms. Dow? Here. Mrs. Westphal?
Here.
So, Mr. Richardson, with your permission, I'd like to ask, you have a scout in the back row, is that correct? Would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Please stand as you're ready. Start whenever you're ready.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Additions to the agenda. I don't have any additions to the agenda this evening. Mrs. Westphal.
Nothing. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Members of council, anything to add to the agenda? Hearing none. Mr. Sanford.
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Chief Miller.
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Shaw.
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Schroyer.
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Browning.
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as submitted?
Second.
Motion and second to approve the agenda for the council meeting of March 3rd, 2025 is submitted. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. Thank you very much. And approval of the council meeting minutes for February 18th. Mrs. Westphal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move approval of the meeting minutes for the Sylvania City Council meeting held on February 18th, 2025 as submitted.
Second. Motion to second to approve the council meeting minutes for February 18th, 2025. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. Thank you very much. The meeting minutes for the council meeting of February 18th are approved as submitted. Moving on to a quick introduction. We've got 3 new police officers that Chief Miller would like to introduce to us. So come on up.
Usually we do these as they get hired, but since we had quite a few coming in at one time, I was just going to lump them all together so you can meet them at once. Our first is Tessa Gardella. She comes to us from Brunswick, Ohio, and she has an associate's degree from Cuyahoga Community College and a bachelor's degree from the University of Akron. She actually started with us in August of 24. She was in our cadet program, and she successfully passed her academy and state test in January. And she was sworn in January 6th and has begun her field training with our officers in January. So,
Congratulations.
Welcome.
the next officer I have to introduce to you tonight is Aaron Hovey. Aaron is from Toledo, Ohio. He holds an associate degree from the University of Toledo. He completed the Owens Police Academy last year in 2024. And this is his first full-time municipal law enforcement job with us.
Congratulations. Congrats.
And our final person tonight is Brian Smith. And Brian is from Sylvania, and he's a Northview graduate. He has an associate, bachelor, and master's degree. And many years ago, he was actually an active member with our Volunteer on Patrol program.
Oh, wow.
So Brian received his peace officer certification through Owens Police Academy in 2013, and he's managed to keep it current all these years with some part-time jobs and reserve officer positions, always wanting to work for us. So he's finally come back, and you might be familiar with him because he has also worked full-time for Sylvania Schools in Sage Yard.
Okay, great.
Congratulations.
Welcome.
Great additions.
Great addition.
Super. Very pleased.
Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, here's the time. That up here? Just like we did when we swore you in. Thank you. You're all excused.
Chief, thank you very much for introducing the new officers. Look forward to their service to the community. on our agenda, as you'll note, we had an executive session. We were expecting an attorney arrive. He's not going to be able to make it this evening, so with council's permission, I'd like to delay the executive session till the end of the agenda so we can just continue on forward. Is that acceptable, council members?
Yep.
Thank you. I don't think it'll take all that long, but we'll move on to agenda item number 7 and take up number 6. Mr. Shaw, I think this is the start of your part of the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We recently solicited for bids on the Centennial Road Sanitary Sewer Project. Get to my sheet here. Okay. We requested the authorization to advertise at our January 21st meeting. As a reminder, the scope of work includes the installation of an 8-inch sanitary sewer as an extension that will cross Centennial Road near Doyle Drive, and then will serve additional residents on the west side of Centennial. Our engineer's estimate was $56,205. We received 3 bids on February 18th. The lowest bidder was Ohio Excavating out of Holland, Ohio. Their bid was $61,185, which was a touch over our estimate, almost 9%. Second lowest bid was received from Geddes Paving, significantly higher at $73,521. A little bit higher than what we were hoping to see, but Ohio Excavating has done many projects for us in the past. Usually they aren't in front of you guys. Mostly they're emergency repair work on sanitary sewer taps or something that's deeper that's a little out of our expertise to do. They're the first that we call to do those types of emergency repairs for us. The last prime contracting work that they did was in 2014 on Arbor Way, where we installed all new, brand new sanitary sewer on that road. So have all the confidence in the world in Ohio Excavating to do the work. Project was included in our 2025 budget. Would be funded from our sewer account with the 702 account number extension listed there. So I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody may have.
Council, questions for Mr. Shaw? Hearing none, we have ordinance number 31, 2025 for consideration. Mr. Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to introduce by title only ordinance number 31-2025, accepting the bid of Ohio Excavating and Sewer Contractors Corporation and awarding the contract for the Centennial Sanitary Sewer Extension 2025 project to same, authorizing the expenditure for the improvements in the amount of $61,185, appropriating funds therefore. I move for passage of ordinance number 31-2025 as an emergency measure.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 31, 2025 as an emergency measure. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item number 8, Mr. Shaw.
Okay, second bid award recommendation for you tonight. This is on Silvertown. This is our water line replacement project as well as resurfacing effort over on Silvertown. We requested authorization to advertise for bids on January 6th. As a reminder, we're fully replacing the existing 8-inch water line on Silvertown. And when we're finished, we're gonna mill and resurface the road. Goes the full length between Alexis and Monroe, so a fairly large project. Our published engineer's estimate was $945,137. We took bids on February 18th, and we received 4 of those. The apparent low was Ohio Excavating, previous contractor we just mentioned out of Holland, Ohio. Their bid was $939,320.75. So a very good number, just under our estimate for the project. Second lowest was from E.R. Zeiler Excavating. I think they're in Temperance, Michigan, if I remember. They were at $997,000, a little over, so about close to 6% over estimate. Again, same thing with Ohio Excavating. They do great work. They usually do a lot of our subdivisions in Lucas County. If you go around to the residential, Sylvania Township, Monclova Township, where a lot of brand new subdivisions are going in, Ohio X does a huge number of those. There's been a drop off in that market, and I think they're coming back to the municipal sector to want to try to grab some work because I think it's a slow year. So I think that's why you're seeing them on both of these projects. I'm sorry.
It said this is $1 million of work for them, so.
Yeah. So This is again budgeted in 2025. This one out of our water account, our 701 extension listed there. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Shaw? Hearing none, we have ordinance number 32, 2025 in consideration. Mr. Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to introduce by title only ordinance number 32-2025, accepting the bid of Ohio Excavating and Sewer Contractors Corporation and awarding the contract for the Silvertown Drive water line improvements and resurfacing project to same, authorizing the expenditure for the improvements in the amount of $939,320.75, appropriating funds therefore. I move for passage of ordinance number 32-2025 as an emergency measure.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve ordinance number 32, 2025 as an emergency measure. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. Thank you very much. And I'll just note for the record that the first one that was approved, 31, and the second one, when you add those up, almost dead nuts to right on budget. One was 6,000 high, the other was about 6,000 low. Moving on to agenda item number 9, sewer department equipment purchase.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Largest piece of equipment that we are buying this year is out of our sewers department. We have a really low capital program this year with the one that we just awarded. We also put a little bit of 702 monies towards the interchange project. But we knew that going into it this year, that this was going to be our big request out of that department this year. So we have an existing closed circuit camera television system. It's over 20 years old. It's a portable type unit. It used to be housed in the back of an old box truck. We replaced the box truck because it was so old. Got a new one. It's housed there. But it's a small portable unit. The display on it's not great. We can do video capabilities and record. It's not great, but we do make it work, and we've used it for a long time. So the idea was to get rid of the portable replacement system and get something more robust with this. So this is a standalone truck camera system. We don't have something like this in our fleet, but it would be on an E450 Ford chassis. The backside of it would be outfitted with a new camera system, fully capable of digitally recording our inspections that we need to do. The really cool thing that this one does that we do not have the capabilities to do is lateral launching. We're starting to dig into doing some sanitary lining work in our old areas of town. We usually have to contract out that work to look up the laterals because we do not have that ability. This piece of equipment gives us that ability to do. I would say 95% of the house calls that we're going on and checking residents that are backed up, it's because something that's up the lateral line. And this gives us the ability to offer that to our residents too, where we can come out, shoot the camera up and see what's going on instead of having them pay the expense to have a local sewer contractor come out and see what's going on. So monumental, huge capability that we could add that we don't already have. So would be excited about that. So again, this was programmed. We kind of went light on our capital infrastructure, knowing that this camera purchase was in the books. So this would be funded out of our 702 account extension that's there. So be happy to answer any questions you have about the truck or piece of equipment.
Questions for Mr. Shaw?
Some of the old equipment will have some .gov.
There will be plenty of people that'll still want to use an old camera system like that, sure.
Mr. Shaw.
Yep.
So, and I don't expect you to know this number off the top of your head, but you mentioned that sometimes you have to contract out people to go up the lines. Do you have an idea of savings?
Yeah, so we did Main Street, we cameraed, I'm sorry, I don't have the numbers. I'm gonna say 30. Let's say we did 30 laterals to shoot up. It was probably 15,000 just to get that piece of it. And that wasn't doing the main line because we could camera the main line and see what was going on. So it was about maybe $15,000 to do that.
Any other questions for Mr. Shaw? We're gonna give Mr. Hanson a break here. He's got a lot of stuff this evening. So, Mr. Murphy. we could do ordinance 33.
Sure.
2025.
I would like to introduce by title only ordinance number 33, 2025, authorizing the mayor and director of finance to accept the proposal of Jack, is it Doheny?
Doheny, yep.
For the provision of one liftgate package for our new 2025 closed-circuit television camera truck for the sewer division, Department of Public Services appropriating $375,302.27. Therefore, I move as an emergency measure that we pass ordinance number 33, 2025.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 33, 2025 as an emergency measure. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. And ordinance number 33, 2025 is approved as an emergency measure. Agenda item number 10, traffic signal improvement project. Mr. Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As mentioned in the Streets Committee meeting, this is our traffic signal improvement project at Monroe, Maine, and Summit. I've had this in engineering for probably a good 4 or 5 years now. We've been trying like crazy to figure out a way to fund it, which I alluded to. We were able to get a little bit of OPWC grant monies bundled with a federal application. The only way I was able to get OPWC funds on this was to have federal monies available to it. So just to kind of bookend that a little bit. But we received 2 bids for the project on February 25th. Our parent low was U.S. Utility Contractor out of Perrysburg. They're a little high again, $502,000. Our estimate was $476,000. The next bid, very close to them, was Param Electric at $508,000. We usually have FET contractors in on our signal projects locally. They're just off of Central Avenue. Used to be on Alger. They did not get their bid on time. They missed it by an hour. So unfortunately, we were unable to read it and open it and see what they had. So U.S. Utility was it. They have not done a lot of prime contract work for us. It's a lot of FET on the traffic signal side, but they have been the prime contractor for ODOT on a couple of city-related projects. They were out on Alexis Road at Elliott, and they also did some work at Acres Road as well. So perfectly normal, qualified ODOT contractor that does traffic signal work. They were the subcontractor to get us paving on Monroe Street for the pedestrian hybrid beacon at St. Joe's. So they did that installation as well. So more than capable of doing the work. So we had this one programmed in our 2025 budget out of our 223 account. So not a 401 account. So that's where the monies were allocated towards this project. And again, a reminder, OPWC monies, about $93,000 to help us out. So be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Shaw? Hearing none, we have ordinance number 34, 2025 for consideration. Mr. Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is ordinance number 34, 2025. I will read by title only. Accepting the bid of U.S. Utility Contractor and awarding the contract for the Monroe Main Summit Traffic Signal Improvements Project the same. Authorizing the expenditure for the improvements in the amount of $502,082.70. Appropriating funds therefore, and I would move passage as an emergency measure.
Second.
We have a motion to a second to approve ordinance number 34, 2025 as an emergency measure. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried and ordinance number 34, 2025 is approved as an emergency measure. Moving on to agenda item
Mr.
number
Mayor,
11.
before we move on, I just want to note that, we just spent a lot of money and for our scout in the back. All these projects were considered at the time that we did our budget at the end of last year. So we're just executing a plan that we developed as part of the budget process. So I know this all seems like it's going fast, and we're spending a lot of money, and we are, but it's been planned and it's been reviewed, and this is sort of the end of the train. We've been working on these issues for a long time. And I think sometimes we lose track of it.
No, well stated, Mr. Hayden, absolutely.
Sorry, Joe.
No, of course.
Agenda item number 11.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sylvania Avenue Pumping Station. So last December, we had authorized an engineering services contract for Fishbeck. That's for the full replacement of our pumping station on Sylvania Avenue. Their contract amounts listed in the letter there at just under $195,000. They've started work, they've started doing preliminary design. They've coordinated with a couple of geotechnical firms and gotten some quotes that are gonna be necessary to do soil borings. What's gonna be needed for excavations when we do it, how to dewater the site, and any foundation recommendations that come with the station. The unfortunate piece was the geotechnical piece of it was not included in their proposal from last year. So they assumed in their proposal that this was gonna be directly administered with the city. A little unusual, usually our geotechnical stuff is included, oversight that I did not catch. Nonetheless, we still need to do the work. So they've completed their review of geotechnical work. They're recommending Hauser Mourner from Toledo, Ohio, to do the necessary work at just under $9,000, $8,792. So again, oversight on my behalf that the geotechnical fee was not included in our 702 account. So this would be an additional appropriation necessary to do the work. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Shaw?
Mr. Shaw?
Yep.
Will there be any delays on the project because they weren't a part of it earlier in item? They tend to be busy around this time of year.
Yeah, no delays at all. This is when it would have came up. It was just an unfortunate miss that I didn't catch last year.
Other questions from Mr. Shaw? If not, we have ordinance number 35, 2025 for consideration. Mr. Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to introduce by title only ordinance number 35-2025, accepting the proposal of Bowser Mourner to provide professional geotechnical engineering services for the Sylvania Avenue Pump Station Replacement Project, appropriating funds therefore in an amount not to exceed $8,792. I move for passage of ordinance number 35-2025 as an emergency legislation.
Motion and a second to approve ordinance number 35, 2025 as an emergency measure. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried and ordinance number 35, 2025 is approved as an emergency measure. Agenda item number 12. Mr. Shaw.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've been continuing our work on the dedication of city administration building to our former mayor, Craig A. Stow. At our February 3rd council meeting, we were authorized to contract with Edge to do some signage rendering for what that was going to look like on the building. They've completed that work, so the next step was to solicit quotes to put the signage up and light it. We've done that work. We did get 2 quotes on the signage piece of it, the lowest being submitted from Toledo Sign. Their quote is going to provide aluminum flush-mounted wall letters in the amount of $5,404. Letters will be 12 inches tall. They'll match the court building. And the overall size of it is 15 feet long by 4 foot high. But it'll be centered below the mayor's office windows as you're looking at the building. So they were the lowest quote. We did get some lighting. We're going to do some ground lighting and shoot it up at the building so that it's lit at night. We got a quote from K2 Electric. They're out of Temperance in the amount of $1,770. They're going to provide a new light. They've got to do some wiring. They got to get a weatherproof box over to it and all that kind of stuff for $1,770. So again, we didn't have any of these types of funds necessarily programmed in our budget. We're recommending the funds be pulled from our 401 account that's in our lands and buildings miscellaneous fund. That fund had a $50,000 allocation towards it this year. We paid for the engineering kind of to do it. The money would come out of here. So no net increase to the capital, just an allocation towards a specific line item in the budget. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Shaw?
Mr. Shaw, did Toledo Sign give a lead time or anything, like that, just the timing in general of the
They're
project?
both ready to go. So how we put all that together, we'll see. Timing, we can really go as quickly as we can, or if we need to slow it, we can go as slow as we can too, but we're ready to go as soon as they have the green light. So maybe in a couple weeks. Yeah, that's I think we need to do. So we'll slow down a little bit and say, okay, what's the good date? And then we'll try to time it out.
Any other questions for Mr. Shaw in regards to these ordinances? Ms. Stowe, ordinance number 36, 2025, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce ordinance number 36-2025 and read by title only. Accepting the proposal of K2 Electric LLC to provide and install lighting for the Craig A. Stowe Municipal Building signage, appropriating funds therefore in the amount of $1,770. I move for passage of ordinance number 36-2025 as an emergency measure.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve ordinance number 36, 2025 as an emergency measure. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. And ordinance number 36, 2025 is approved as an emergency measure.
Mr. Mayor, one additional comment on that. Normal signs go through our Board of Architectural review process. This is no different. It is going to be on the March Board of Architectural Review agenda, just to make sure we're dotting our i's and crossing our t's like we do with every sign. So just wanted to.
Design guidelines, Mr. Shaw? Just double checking. I figured it probably did.
Thank you.
No, good, that's a good point. Ordinance number 37, 2025, Ms. Stowe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce ordinance number 37-2025 and read by title only. Accepting the proposal of Vito Sign to provide and install signage for Craig A. Stowe Municipal Building, appropriating funds therefore in the amount of $5,404. I move for passage of ordinance number 37-2025 as an emergency measure.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve ordinance number 37, 2025 as an emergency measure. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried, and ordinance number 37, 2025 is approved as an emergency measure. Moving on to agenda item number 13, Mr. Sanford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This ordinance deals with our annual fireworks show. Just a quick history of how this is put together every year, in that it is a joint effort between Sage Yard, Sylvania Township, and the city of Sylvania. Our role has been to pass the legislation like we'll do tonight, and the city pays for the show, and then we split it with the township. And Sage Yard also helps with collecting donations and sponsorships for the show. Then they're in charge of the show the day of the, which is July the 3rd. And again, this is a new contract. Our last contract expired at the end of last year, and it's for 1 year. We had talked to them about a 2-year contract, which they were willing to do. What they could not do was give us the cost of an additional show, as we wanted to make, and this, I think we had talked about this earlier, and because of the 250th anniversary of the country in 2026. So that's why tonight we just have a 1-year contract for the fireworks show.
Questions for Mr. Sanford?
Mr. Sanford, just a point of clarification. This will be split equally between the city, the township, and
The city and the township after the sponsorships. And there's some substantial ones that Sage Yard helps with also. So that comes in and we deduct, and then at the end of the day, I'd coordinate with Toby and find out what we have. And Sage Yard usually sends us then whatever the money all comes to us.
so we pay up front and everybody.
Correct.
Making sure for the record that we're all.
Yep. Yep. We end up splitting the cost.
Other questions for Mr. Sanford?
Mr. Sanford, just from a frame of reference for myself, what did this cost last year?
I think I have that here. 45,000 was the cost for 23 and 24
Each.
each year.
Yeah.
So it's up to 49.5.
10% on, okay.
Other questions for Mr. Sanford? Hearing none, we have ordinance number 38, 2025 for consideration. Mr. McCann.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce by title only ordinance number 38-2025, authorizing an agreement with American Fireworks Company for the Independence Day celebration on July 3rd, 2025 at Centennial Terrace and Quarry. authorizing the mayor and director of finance to sign an agreement for the fireworks display, which will cost $49,500, authorizing a 50% deposit payment for the fireworks display due April 1st, 2025, which will be shared by the city, Sylvania Township, and the Sylvania Area Joint Recreation District and the area businesses. I move for passage of ordinance number 38, 2025 as an emergency measure.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 38, 2025 as an emergency measure. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried and ordinance number 38, 2025 approved as an emergency measure. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 14. This is a contract for electric aggregation for the residential and small business customers in the city of Sylvania. Ms. Bryant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the mayor said, our current agreement with Energy Harbor expires in May of this year. So Palmer solicited proposals from various suppliers. And we met at the end of January and discussed their recommendation, and they recommended soliciting contracts and final prices from 2 suppliers, Dynegy and Constellation. I believe that refresh pricing was gonna be done today, but with our council meeting tomorrow. Okay. It's nice that now Mr. Fry is able to speak. Yes. He's definitely the subject matter expert. So we're going to be getting refresh pricing tomorrow. Based on that, Palmer will make a recommendation, and us, along with our other 14 area communities that comprise NOAC, will execute a contract to provide lower cost electricity for our residential and small commercial customers. And just for, I know we have a couple of people who haven't maybe seen this before, but we've been doing this since 2000, and the electric aggregation has saved our customers about $190 million, which is not insignificant. So even though it looks, on an annual basis, you kind of, is it worth it? It all adds up for sure.
Questions for Ms. Brining? Hearing none, we have ordinance number 39, 2025 for consideration. Mr. Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to introduce by title only ordinance number 39-2025, authorizing the mayor and director of finance to enter into a customer supply agreement for the provision of electric energy to residential and small commercial customers within the city of Sylvania. I move for passage of ordinance number 39-2025 as an emergency measure.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 39, 2025 as an emergency measure. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried and ordinance number 39, 2025 is approved as an emergency measure. Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item number 15. Mrs. Westfall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have had the pleasure of speaking with the chief about this particular proposal and this ordinance, and I think that she's got a lot of good information. I know she's got a timeline on it and needs to have this approved by the close of the March 17th meeting. So for the interest of the safety committee, the recommendation is that this I will not be here that night, but I think it would be worth it for perhaps the other members of the committee to meet early, 7:15 or so, and have perhaps Doug chair that committee and just hear what the chief has to say about the drone, and then be more prepared for this legislation to be passed at that meeting. Does that sound acceptable to the group? What I'm proposing is a meeting on March 7th at 7:15. Or 7 o'clock maybe. What do you think, chief? You think 7 o'clock or 7:15?
Probably 7 o'clock. That way, if there's questions, we have plenty of time.
Okay,
I'm available then.
Yeah, I can do that.
okay.
I can't imagine we don't need a drone.
Oh, it's Brian, Lindsay, and Marcus.
Yes.
Well, again,
It works for me.
I just wanted to make sure that you have the opportunity to ask the question, so, all right? So I'll make a motion that.
I want to see videos.
He wants to test them out. I'll make a motion that the safety committee meet on Monday, March 17th at 7 p.m. in for a discussion of ordinance number 40-2025.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to set a safety committee meeting for Monday, March 17th at 7 PM here at Council Chambers for consideration and information on the drone proposal from the police department and the chief. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried, and the clerk will post that meeting time and date. Thank you very much. Look forward to that information. I had a chance to ask a bunch of questions of the chief, and it's kind of an interesting project. It's an interesting project. Moving on, we have a memo here from Mr. Sylvania, our IT manager, regarding some technology that we may not need. Mrs. Westfall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that we request approval for obsolete equipment as presented in this memo to be placed at govdeals.com.
A motion and a second to approve the sale of obsolete IT equipment on GovDeals per Mr. Silvernail's 2/21/2025 memo. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Committee reports. We have two committee reports this evening. Employee and Community Relations Committee being held in the state. Mr. McCann.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we held a meeting of the Employee and Community Relations Committee regarding the citizen representative appointment to the Sylvania Area Recreation District Board of Trustees. I want to thank the candidates for applying to this position. We need involvement from the community for our boards and commissions to function for the betterment of the city. The meeting commenced at 6 p.m. In attendance were myself, Marcus Hanson, Doug Hanum, Patrick Richardson on the committee, and others present were Sean Murphy and Mary Westfall. We had 4 candidates interviewed through 7 o'clock, and Patrick, out of the meeting, Patrick moved to advance Jamie Kablish as the Employee and Community Relations recommendation to council. Doug seconded. The vote was unanimous. The meeting closed at 7:10. Following our meeting, I asked legislation be prepared for advancement to council.
We have a motion to advance legislation for the new Sage Art appointment from Mr. McCann, correct?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor of advancing the legislation for the Employee and Community Relations Committee meeting for, on this date for consideration, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. So in front of you now is, I asked Ms. Brining, because we were interviewing 4 different candidates, to prepare the legislation or resolution for all 4 candidates, depending on which one the committee chose to recommend to council for consideration. And with that being distributed now, did you distribute them that way too?
Yes.
Okay, great. We have resolution number 5, 2025 for consideration. Mr. McCann.
Mr. Mayor, I'd also like to add Ms. Kablish has a strong background in planning and forecasting and project management, as well as engagement professionally on board of physicians. Ms. Kablish holds a master's degree in business administration from the University of Toledo. She's a local resident, mother of 2, and through Sylvania schools and rec. Thank you. I'd like to introduce by title only resolution number 5-2025, appointing Jamie Kablish to the Board of Trustees of Sylvania Area Joint Recreation District, Sage-Art, for a term expiring December 31st, 2027. I move adoption of resolution number 5-2025 as an emergency measure.
Second.
So motion and a second to approve resolution number 5, 2025 as an emergency measure. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. Thank you very much. And resolution number 5, 2025 is approved as an emergency measure. And we certainly appreciate all the candidates, as Mr. McCann mentioned, that applied, and look forward to their continued involvement in the community. And thank you, Ms. Kedblish, for being willing to step up and serve on SAGE Art. So appreciate that very much. Thank you. Second committee report is from the Streets Committee meeting held a little while ago. Mr. Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, this evening we had a meeting of the Streets Committee to discuss roundabouts. Present were myself as chair, committee members Sean Murphy, Doug Hanem, and Brian McCann. We had Mary Westfall and Marcus Hanson from City Council, as well as Mayor Bryan, many members of the administration, and several members of the community as well. We started with the presentation from Mr. Shaw, very thorough, detailed presentation that gave a lot of great information. We started with some terminology. We went and compared roundabouts to traditional intersections and talked about vehicles and pedestrians and their safety. We did a cost analysis, and it was mentioned that roundabouts are easier to get federal grants. The data suggested that roundabouts are safer for both drivers and pedestrians. There was a couple of questions from the community about the traffic study data and how that's collected, and we adjourned at 7:47.
Great. Any questions for Mr. Richardson? Super, thank you very much. Appreciate you checking that meeting this evening, Mr. Richardson.
Thank you.
Very informative. Any committee referrals? Hearing none, we've come to the end of our agenda. We now are going to return back to agenda item number 6, which is the consideration on an executive session for potential pending litigation. Will the clerk please call the roll regarding executive session?
Mr. Hanson?
Yes.
Mr. Hanem?
Yes.
Mr. McCann?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Richardson?
Yes.
Ms. Stout?
Yes.
Mrs. Westfall?
Yes.
All 7 members have been voting to enter into executive session. We're going to enter into executive session. No decisions will be made in executive session, and in this particular thing, I don't know that any decisions will be made once we exit executive session. But you're welcome to We just are considering the exiting of an executive session. No decisions were made during the executive session. But we do have consideration for exiting the executive session. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Hanson?
Yes.
Mr. Haven?
Yes.
Mr. McCann?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Richardson?
Yes.
Ms. Dow? Yes. Mrs. Westfall?
Yes.
All 7 members of council have approved the exit of executive session, so we're back in regular session. And we do in fact have something. Ms. Brining was very efficient and had this thing printed up for us. So we have ordinance number 41, 2025 for consideration. And I'm not sure what bucket this falls into, but I'm going to give it to Mr. McCann.
Great.
There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce by title only ordinance number 41-2025, authorizing the mayor and director of finance to enter into a settlement agreement with Constantinos and Aphrodite, Georgiopolis and Republic Development LLC, appropriating $46,250. I would move for passage of ordinance number 41-2025 as an emergency measure.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 41, 2025 as an emergency measure. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. And ordinance number 41, 2025 is approved as an emergency measure. Anything else to come before council this evening? Hearing none, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. And we are adjourned until our next council meeting on Monday, March 17th.